Hello, everyone. Here. Happy Monday. How's everyone doing tonight? All right. I'm missing a device, so I'm going to have to do tonight's bundle from memory. That's all right. It'll be fine. We'll figure it out. How's everybody doing this evening? Hi, Shalana. How are you tonight? Right. Hi, Karen. Hi, Ellen. Hi, Jamie. Happy Monday. It's our Monday time. Whoop, whoop. All right. So tonight's bundle, it is regular price, $79 and change. And it's on sale for $40. So you get about close to $80 in product for 50% off, or somewhere around there. If you check out the description box below, there is a direct link to the bundle. Then there's a link to all the collection, because we're going to pull in some add-ons and talk about some fun stuff tonight. Yes, I love these products. I love this card. This whole card project tonight, it might be my favorite one I've done. I was inspired by Doctor Who. Tonight's project is inspired by Doctor Who. That's where we're going with it. All right, so in the bundle, we have Marbled Magic paper collection. And I have had this for a while. I've used quite a bit of it, but that's okay. We have plenty still. Fancy frame, just the die and the stencil. The Galaxies washi sheet. I buy my washi sheets in sets of 2. And as you can see, this one is a well-loved one. We have this adorable Make Today Amazing stamp and the coordinating dies. Some acetates and some rouge cardstock and chroma glaze. In addition to what's in our bundle tonight, I am going to add in a couple of things as I create. And one of the things we're going to talk about is, if you've ever been in the British Mirror shop, you know that we have chroma glaze and chroma opaque. Show of hands, who knows what the difference is? If you don't know what the difference is, we are going to talk about the difference in these two products tonight, because they are different in quite a few ways. So that's going to be fun. And yes, we're going like pink and purple and teal, and because I love those colors. Okay. So let's start. We're also going to be making a 6x6 card. So here's my card base. We're going to start with what's going to take us the longest to dry. Oh, the stencil. That's what I'm forgetting, which is also part of the bundle. And the reason the stencil is not here. The reason the stencil is not here with all the other bundles, because I have been using it to mock up a couple things to show you, and it needed to dry. So this is the Vortex stencil, which is also included in the bundle. Okay, so recap. Bundle. Fancy frame stencil and die. Vortex stencil. Cardstock and rouge. Acetate. Make Today Amazing stamp set. Washi sheet, Galaxies. Marbled Magic paper. and Chroma Glaze. Added bonus, we're going to talk about the difference between Chroma Glaze and Chroma Opaque. Hi, Dana. Hi, Jamie. That is true. Jamie's right. Opaque shows up on dark cardstock, but that's not the only thing that's different about it. So, Margie says you go girl with your Doctor Who. My favorite show. As I pick my paper and kind of get settled here and we start playing with all of these products, Doctor Who, I used to watch it with my mother, and we would watch the old Doctor Who's. So we would watch the Doctor Who I grew up watching was the one with the long scarf. I don't remember who that is, but that was the one. Then when they brought it back, I really enjoyed Christopher Eccleston as Doctor Who, and I also enjoyed Matt Smith. I know David Tennant is like everyone's favorite. He was just okay for me. But my children, I introduced my children and my husband to Doctor Who, and they ran with it. And my kids love Doctor Who. So and every time I saw the fancy frame and the stamp set with this astronaut, my brain was like, that's like Doctor Who. So that's where we went with it. Okay, I have my Vortex stencil, and when it comes to this paper pad that we are using tonight, you could literally use almost any pattern that's in this paper pad. So if you've never seen it before, I'll flip through some of the patterns. So we've got lots of that like purple and teal. There's a couple that has some dark orange. So if you want to just switch out some of your colors, you could. But just about any pattern in this paper pack will work for tonight's card project. So the one that I am going to do live tonight, we're going to use the Chroma Glaze. And the reason we're going to do that is because one of the differences between Chroma Glaze and Chroma Opaque is that Chroma Opaque is a thicker consistency, whereas Chroma Glaze is a little bit thinner consistency. So I'm going to use the Chroma Glaze on this panel tonight. And then I can give you some tips and some tricks on how to use it. Chroma Glaze is what comes in the bundle. So I'm just adhering down with some low tack tape my stencil right onto the 6x6 paper that I chose. And it is totally fine if it's a little crooked. We're going to cut it down. And none of these patterns are directionally important. So you just slap the stencil on there, add some of your tape, and you're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of just stir this up. And the best way I can think of to describe Chroma Glaze is that it's not really thick. It's a little runnier, and it's a little bit like, it feels like sticky almost. So it's almost like you are putting honey through a stencil, sort of. That's about the consistency of it. Maybe a little thicker than honey, but not much. So you do have to be a bit careful in that you need to be careful that it doesn't smoosh under your stencil. So don't push down very hard. Use a light touch. Don't use a lot of it's gonna kind of mush right into the stencil, so you don't need to feel like you got to press it in there. Just very, very light-handed. And You can keep your thickness of this particular medium pretty thin. It doesn't have to be, sometimes I say, don't be shy, just kind of push it all in there. And that's what I would say if we were using the opaque, but we're not. And you want to use this with a bit of a lighter hand because it is a different consistency. And I've done lots of projects with the chroma glaze. I think my favorite chroma glazes are like the copper and the penny, the ones that are the metallics. Those are nice, very, very nice. And just like with any medium from Brutus Monroe, the way it looks when you put it onto your project is not how it's going to look when it dries. Oh, I didn't know that Margie says she has met David Tennant and she's going to meet Matt Smith next week. Okay. I've never met anybody famous, actually. I've seen famous people, but I've never met anyone famous. I think that's going to change in April, though. All right. So we'll go ahead and we'll take this off. I'm just going to tear this tape. And because we're going to go ahead and because we're going to go ahead and trim this down, totally fine if it's a little smudgy around the edges. That's not going to matter in the least. So I remember Green Acres. Penny asked if anyone remembers Green Acres. I remember Green Acres. That's so cool. So then we're going to let this dry. And now, by the magic of TV, we're going to talk about what the difference is between the chroma glaze and the chroma opaque. So let me show you this. We're going to do a side-by-side comparison. So on the right, we have chroma opaque. On the left, we have chroma glaze. So, couple of things right off the bat. Chroma opaque dries as expected, opaque, whereas the chroma glaze dries a little bit translucent. Chroma glaze also has this slick, glossy feel to it, and it shimmers a little bit more. Whereas chroma opaque is a little bit more matte. It's a little lighter, more so the drying dries a little lighter, whereas the glaze will dry a little bit deeper. And the funny part about that is if you look at them, that's not what you would necessarily imagine. So they go like this. So definitely do not dry the way that it looks in the bottle. The other thing is that the chroma glaze it dries almost flat. So there isn't a ton of texture here. Like when you run your finger over, it just feels like if you've ever had like an embossed paper, like a specialty cardstock paper that has that embossed, so it's a little bit raised, but not too much. That's what the chroma glaze feels like, whereas chroma opaque dries much thicker, much more textured, and it has kind of like this chalky look to it. So that is a side-by-side. That's what the difference is between the two Chroma Glaze and Chroma Opaque. So Chroma Glaze, which is going to work just fine for our card project today, is what is included in the bundle. Chroma Opaque, you'll find it in the collection link, and it would be an add-on. So I used the Chroma Glaze for my background, but the one that I have here and prepped for you is with the Chroma Opaque. Another thing is, you can see here, this pattern paper, it's darker. And notice how when you put the pink Chroma Glaze on top of this kind of dark tealy color, it almost like mixes. And now we have something in here that looks a little bit purpley, right? Whereas up here, where it's like pink on pink, it looks really pink. But down here, looks a little purpley. So the color that you put underneath the Chroma Glaze, it will react. You'll be able to see, because it's a little translucent, and it'll kind of look differently, whereas the opaque will just cover whatever it is up. So the cool thing about that is that with the opaque, you can put it on black cardstock or a very, very dark pattern paper, whereas the Chroma Glaze will be more translucent, and it'll kind of like this does, where the pink and the blue and the teal kind of make this purpley color. So that's the big differences between the Chroma Opaque and the Chroma Glaze, and I hope that that is super helpful for you. So here are those two, and we'll pop this down here. So here is what it looks like. This is the one with the Chroma Opaque. Our Chroma Glaze is going to sit right ahead of me, and it's going to dry. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim this down. Also, interestingly enough, you can cut right through this with a trimmer. Which I love. Because that means when you're stenciling, you can fudge up the edges and kind of, now, they can look a little smudgy, and you're okay. Because you can trim them right off. All right. Oh, thank you, Alyssa. Yes, Alicia, I think. She says, don't forget to click the thumbs up. Yes, yes, yes. Clicking the thumbs up is very, very helpful. All right. The next thing we're going to play with is our fancy frame. So the stencil for the fancy frame comes in a set of 3. There are on this one and on this one. This is upside down. There's a little embossed shape so that you get each of the layers for the frame correct. So I have here, remember last week, I said, if you get the bundle, we're going to use that Perfect Blend cardstock pack that was in the bundle last week. We're going to use it this week too. And that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead. I trimmed my Perfect Blend right down. And then I chose 3 Distress Oxide colors in the same colors that match our background and all of our fun elements. And we're just going to go ahead and use a blending brush. I am starting with Picked Raspberry for the first stencil. And the first stencil I'm using is the one that has this little piece down at the bottom, because then when I layer the other two stencils on top, I can line up this piece with the embossed or etched spots, and everything will layer perfectly. This one also has an etched 2 and a 3 on here, but I don't see the 1, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's not there. Just could just mean I'm old and my eyes don't work as well as they used to. So these layers are really easy to line up and to use. Everyone's talking about Green Acres. Oh, that's great. Now, all I can say is that in my head, because, you know, this is how I am, I now have the song from the Green Acres TV show playing in my head. I don't know, good, bad, otherwise, who knows? So there's the first layer. For the second layer, I'm going to do the same thing. So I can see where that etched little flower is. And I'm going to go ahead, line it up. Grab my next color of Distress Oxide. And if you're interested, the next color that I am using is Wilted Violet. So I'm going to line that up. Put my low tack tape bottom. And I am just using the larger blending brushes from my craft room because I have these lovely Gina K ones, and I have one for each color. And these stencils are not tiny. We're not doing tiny little areas. So this will work perfectly for what we are doing this evening. Also, I love this frame. I think this could be used for so many things, and it is so fun. If you're a scrapbooker, you'll see in a minute, you could use this to frame a picture. Okay, so, and if you had like heritage photos to scrapbook, you could use this in different colors so that you could do, you know, shades of like brown and tan, things like that, and then ink the edges and have something that looks old and antique-y. Okay, so again, I'm just going to line up my little flower. Make sure I can read my 3. And then I'm going to come in with my third color, which is the Broken China. I'm going to turn this so that my brush doesn't catch some of these kind of sharp, pointy edges on the stencil. Ink blending through a stencil is highly meditative, let me just say. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I find it very, like, meditative. Okay. Before I pull this stencil off, let me grab, where are you? Just a second. Oh, it's directly in front of me, it is. Of course. Isn't that how it always is, right? Searching everywhere, and it's directly in front of me. So one of the other things that we used last week, and I said we're going to use it this week too, is the glitter glaze alabaster. So once I have my last stencil, I'm going to take a little bit of this and I'm going to put it down here because it will pick up that teal if I go over it more than once, and I want to make sure that I don't get the teal ink in my jar. So we're going to go ahead and that. And now we'll reveal ta-da! Look how pretty. And then when this dries, you take the die set, which comes in our bundle, and you can cut it out. And you have something that looks like this. So see what I was saying? You definitely could put a photo in there. The sizing might get a little, like you might want to do like some paper and then the photo. So you could put this the smaller photo in, because this right here is pretty thin and it could get a little strange, but you could put, the whole picture and then just trim around. Actually, and that's what we're actually going to do with our acetate tonight. So that would be a good way to do that as well. Okay. So give me a second, talk amongst yourselves, and get this all off of my work surface before it dries. And if it does dry, then we just want to take a scraper. Logan, run downstairs and remind your dad that I'm teaching the class up here. I don't know if you can hear that or not. My husband plays piano and he's serenading us. So he's really not supposed to be. Ah. Crafty time and piano playing. Okay. Thank you for being patient while I cleaned up. So we have our frame. Now we need our acetate. I'm going through each of these elements as I use them. So the acetate is a really nice package. You get 20 sheets in this package, which is a really nice amount. And basically, we're going to have our little astronaut and our little frame. We're going to pop those up. And then in the middle, where the vortex comes together, we're going to use some of that washi, and we're going to have our little astronaut popping up out of there. So very Doctor Who. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some wet glue, and I'm just going to go around the inside edge of my frame. And I have a tiny little like needle nose thing on here. So we're just going to go right inside the frame. Then make sure there's nothing on my acetate. There's nothing I dislike more than smeary acetate. Well, I guess there's probably some things I dislike more, but that's definitely up there. I'm going to go ahead and push the acetate into the glue, but you kind of see my fingers are pushing out away from the middle. That is so that if the glue wants to smudge a little bit, it's going to smudge outside, not into the middle of my mirror. Okay. So we'll give that like a beat to cure a little bit. And while we do that, we'll get some foam tape. I think, does anybody have any more questions about the Chroma Opaque versus the Chroma Glaze? Did my directions and information make sense? Do you have any questions? So I'm just going to take some scissors now, and I'm going to cut away all of the acetate that is sticking out. And the only part that's going to get that you have to be a little bit careful with is this one edge, because it is pretty thin right there. Otherwise, this will go pretty. So leave right around here. And there we go. Next, we want to pop up our mirror. So I have my foam tape here, and I'm cutting wee little strips of it. And it's super easy to cut wee little strips of this, because Bruce Monroe's Folk tape is the best tape ever. I'm not sure if this is in stock or not. It goes in and out pretty fast. But Penny's here tonight, so I bet she can tell us if it's in stock or not. You didn't see the little dance I did. It's like the penny dance. It's that, yay, Penny's here dance, right? So I'm going to take all these little strips. And run all the way around the inside. That will pop our little mirror up. Give the front of our card some dimension. And this isn't a shaker card, so we don't have to be really careful about sealing the edges. We're not going to fill this with any kind of shaker bits, although depending on how you did it, you certainly could. Just going to pop this. Oh, thank you. Yes. I thought that that would be the case with the foam tape. I know it's been out of stock for a while. Okay, so all those little bits. I'm going to set our mirror aside now, and we're going to grab a rouge cardstock. So I say this all the time over on my YouTube channel. This is the most perfect pink color ever. Penny's like, yep, they're a hot commodity. Yep. All right, so I'm just going to take a quick measurement here because I want to make sure that my panel is going to come off, give as much of a mat as I want it to. So I'm going to cut this at 5.5 by 5.5 because my panel is 5 by 5 after I trimmed off all of the edges. Because this is a wet medium that I put on this paper, I am going to adhere this down with some wet glue because that way it'll hold a little bit tighter. I'm also going to kind of bend my paper back into shape. Most paper, once you put the wet medium or the mixed media on it, it needs to be kind of bent back into shape. It's totally fine. Paper has no memory. It'll bend right back however you put it, but you can also place something like this underneath, like a heavy book or something like that after it's dry. It'll flatten right up. No worries. Plus, if I use a wet glue to do this, then I have a little bit of wiggle room. To get my edges correct. My even. Get my mat even. And you can just bend it. Sure there's no bubbles. Everything is flat. Yep, has no memory. Doesn't remember what you did to it. Shalana, it will always bend back to where you need it to go. All right. So, background, and we have this open space right here. We have our little mirror. And so, for the middle of this card, we need our astronaut to be like popping up out of a little galaxy type hole. I know that sounded strange. Trust me. So for our little, I did this off camera. I stamped and die cut our little stamped set. And I just stamped it in black and white because that'll make it nice and contrast. So we have our little astronaut. He's going to be popping out. And then we have our sentiment that's going to go on the inside of the card, actually. Okay, so our astronaut is going to be here, but I want him popping out of something. And that's where we're going to take our. So I do this. I did this when I did my fall layout too. My favorite thing to do with the washi sheet is to tear it into pieces. No judging. Okay. So this part right here, that's where I want the astronaut to be jumping out of. So I'm going to put that piece here. Then I'm going to kind of come in with my little mirror because I want to trim off some of it, but I don't want those harsh edges. I want to hide those. And if you'll notice, this is no longer a mirror. It's a portal now. Okay, so we're going to push this down nice and hard. And then I'm going to take these pieces that are leftovers, and I'm actually going to kind of layer them up a little bit. Again, for the same exact reason, I don't want any of the harsh edges. There we go. All right. And then we have our little astronaut. And he's going to be coming out of this portal right here in the middle. And we have our little mirror. And see, look at how that looks. See how cool that looks? It looks like the little astronaut is just popping right out of the middle of that. I love that. All right, let's do our release paper. And then I have a 6x6 card base ready to go. It doesn't matter in what order you do this. At this point, we're just putting it all together. I'm going to put this part onto my card base. And then I'm going to do the inside of the card, and then we'll put the frame on. If you wanted to do a smaller square card, You could do it 5 by 5 or 5.5 by 5.5. You could also, because remember, you can cut this. So if you wanted to, you could do something that's a little bit smaller and more rectangular and not square, but this frame is pretty big. So I would definitely recommend having a square card, or maybe a 5 by 7 card would work, but you definitely want a larger card because the frame piece is quite large. You could do I'm trying to think. You wanted to do an A2. You could do something that's like off to the side maybe, so you don't have the whole frame on the card, but I like the whole frame on the card. This is going to be the slowest part of tonight's card, and that is going to be pulling off all this release paper. I'm going to get my scissors because I keep my nails cut real short. And scissors make it this way easier to do. So if you're just joining us or popping in a little bit late, the bundle to make tonight's card is linked in the description box. There's also a link to the collection, which has some add-ons and some different products in it. We talked about the difference between chroma opaque and chroma glaze. So if that's something that interests you, definitely go back and watch the replay. And this is the chroma opaque. This is the chroma glaze that comes in the kit, and you can see that both of them would work perfectly on this card design and on this card page. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this in. And if you want the chroma opaque or any of the add-ons, there is a link in the description box for the collection, which is where you can find that. Okay. So there is the card. We're going to play with the inside. We always play with the inside because I like the insides of cards. So I'm going to go ahead and grab another piece of washi tape. We're going to keep this super simple. I'm going to come about 1/3 of the way down. I want to make sure that when you gift this card to its recipient, you have enough room to write a little note. So I don't want to put it right in the middle. I kind of want to put it up more to the top. So the full washi strip, I didn't tear that one. Trim off the edge. And then we can go ahead and take our little sentiment, make today amazing. And it will fit really nicely right on that washi strip. It even has a nice little black dark border around. Perfect. And there we go. So how did I do, right? It does have Doctor Who vibes, I'm telling you. Definitely. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and drop them into the chat. I'll wait a couple minutes. Make sure Nobody has any questions? And that's going to be our project for tonight. And I have all of these lovely, like, extra things that I made to show you guys. So I have all these little bits and pieces that I can play with and make more cards with and do something else with. It's always fun when I do a live and I have it all planned out and then I do things so that things can dry. I always end up with all these fun little, like, extra bits. One day we'll have to take all those extra bits and do something with them. We'll set this aside to dry. Thank you so much, Karen. All right. That's it for tonight. Next week, I believe, we are doing lots of embossing, which is okay because you guys see. That's what you can look forward to next week. All right. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. I hope that this was a great kickoff to our week of content here at Bruce and Brown's YouTube channel. I believe Christopher will be live tomorrow. Candy will be live Wednesday. And also they pack live orders on Wednesday. So that'll be a lot of fun too. You all have a wonderful evening and I'll see you again next Monday. Bye.